stand and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Will you please bow your heads with me as I pray? Dear wise and loving Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all those gathered here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance, for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. And thank you for the gift of our city. We know from the scriptures that cities are one of your great gifts to humanity. And as with any gift, they deserve careful stewardship so that the resources you intend to sustain humanity for its flourishing and the institutions you give to restrain humanity for its protection are equally available and justly dispensed. In the scriptures, you have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray for our mayor, for all city officials, and in particular for this assembled council, and for each council member here in particular. I'm asking that you would graciously grant our council members wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, and personal peace in their lives and joy in their tasks. Finally, in our great city of Fresno, we pray especially for water for our crops. We pray especially for a spirit of reconciliation across racial, cultural, and geographic barriers, an end to concentrated poverty, protection for our police officers and firefighters, academic success to our school children and the teachers who serve them, and growth and prosperity to our many businesses. I pray for the agenda that's before this group today. Please give them an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city of Fresno. And it is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you again. Next is our agenda review. Are there any changes to the agenda?
I have some changes.
Very good.
The first is the successor agency and the FRC minutes of September 1st were approved at the September 15th meeting, so we can disregard them on this agenda. Item 1F regarding Versa has been moved to October 13th per staff. And item 2E, award a construction contract in the amount of $18,204,180 to Floyd Johnson Construction Company, Inc. for the City of Fresno Phase 2 Regional Transportation Main Segment A2 project is also being removed from the agenda per staff. Those are the changes I have.
Thank you very much. With those changes, is there a motion to approve the agenda? Motion by Member Quintero, thank you. I'll second it. All those in favor? Opposed? It passes 5-0 with Members Soria and Baines absent. We'll move on to the minutes of September 15th, 2016. Are there any changes to those minutes? No changes, thank you. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Motion by Member Brandau, second by Member Quintero, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 5-0. Members Baines and Soria absent. Next is council member reports and comments. Member Quintero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask that today's council meeting be adjourned in memory of one of our longtime members of District 5, actually a real pioneer and a leader in District 5, passed away last week. His name was Avis Chilingerian, and everybody knew him by the name of Chili. Had owned the entire city block of Butler, Maple, Liberty, and Recreation, Sierra Vista. Passed away last week, and we just wish his family our condolences and ask that we adjourn in his memory. Number two, I wanted to remind everyone and invite them that this weekend's big event at the Mosqueda Community Center, District 5 Carnaval, which is being sponsored by our office, Parks and Recreation, PG&E, Fresno Unified, and it's just a great event. We'll get 3,000 plus families. Everything is free, and it's just it'll be a wonderful day of information for the families and the children. A lot of information tables, and in particular, we're going to celebrate and salute our folks that are in law enforcement and fire. So that'll be a special tribute to them. Also, city manager wanted to refer to an item in today's agenda. It's item 2D, and that is the actions pertaining to the new Southeast Police Substation and Bus Rapid Transit Station. Just wanted to tell you thank you. It's been a long time coming, and I know that you've worked, and the staff has worked very hard in bringing that to fruition, and a lot of back and forth, and in fact, I know it's taken years to get that. So I really wanted to thank you and the staff for that. It's slowly but surely coming to fruition for that area for the Fancher Creek Shopping Center. And this is a big part of what we're going to do there. Also, it's going to be helpful because I guess a couple meetings ago, the county approved a substation to be built out there as well. Behind the Ferguson store. So thank you very much, and if you'll thank the staff, we really appreciate that a lot. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Member Brandau.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to mention a couple things. First of all, I hope everybody has a fantastic first day of fall. It's my favorite season of the year, so hopefully everybody enjoys their fall. Council President, I wanted to let everybody know that there was a successful event for Crime Stoppers last night. You and I both attended. It was at Fig Garden Country Club in beautiful District 2, and a lot of money was raised for Crime Stoppers, and so it was fantastic. It was a golf tournament, and I didn't play that great, but I had a good time. Second, I also wanted to mention that at this week's FCTA meeting, also yesterday morning, the city manager, Bruce Rudd, and I were both there, and so was the mayor of Fresno, and we did a special request for the FCTA staff to look at raising $500,000 locally to be matched by Caltrans to help us get back in control of our litter cleanup along our local freeways. And so we're very hopeful that the FCTA staff can help us locate an extra $500,000 to get us over the hump with this cleanup. So I just wanted to mention both of those things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Quintero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I failed to mention also that I was asking that we adjourn in memory of Blackie Jajian, passed away a couple weeks ago, and they had there was a big celebration for him last Saturday at the convention center, and a lot of hot rodders from all over the state and the country showed up. There was about 900 people almost at the event, but it was just, and Blackie has contributed so much to Fresno and put Fresno on the map as far as automobiles, and I'm sure you knew him very well as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and he is a legend, and Autorama was one of the highlights for everybody that loved a car, and he brought in the best. Annual event, and he had the Oakland Roadster, the world's most beautiful roadster, a couple of times too, which is quite an honor. Thank you. I wanted to start off by thanking Councilmember Brandau and the administration and the Fresno PD for their litter enforcement efforts. It's important, obviously, to keep our roads clean and present that to people that are passing through to Yosemite and other destinations. So to the FPD and to Councilmember Brandow, thank you so much. Really well deserved. Thank you. Also want to thank 93.7 KISS Radio. Gnarly Charlie and Jody Joe had me on the radio this morning promoting keep the support going for our officers, our correctional officers. So I'm sure you all have heard, but I want to say it one more time. At lunchtime today, 11:30 to 1:30, we're going to have a fundraiser, barbecue hamburgers, hot dogs by FPOA, as well as the firefighters. And Gnarly Charlie and Jody Joe are going to try to make it down here and support these officers as well as their families. So we look forward to seeing you out front. And again, I want to thank Table Mountain as well, and the graphic designs by Katie T, we'll call her. So that's been, we look forward to that. Also want to thank Scott, Brian, and excellent Public Works team for the work at the Discovery Center. We've gotten so many positive calls. Usually we get negative calls, right? But this is an occasion where we got many, many thank yous for this project in front of the Discovery Center. So thanks to all of you folks. It made my day. I also attended the State of the County with Chairman Mendez. He did a great job, and he and I and this council look forward to continuing our relationship with the County of Fresno. It's working out really, really well. Okay, and then I also wanted to invite all the public as well as the administration, everybody that can hear this announcement that we're going to have a tour and a breakfast at that Discovery Center this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And it's on 1944 North Winery, just winery off of McKinley. There's great work being done there. I think you'd all be impressed with it, and you should come and join us and have a great breakfast and check it out. I think you'll be very impressed with it. Okay, thank you very much for that time. And I'll see you all out front for a burger and a hot dog. Now, we'll move on to the consent calendar. Is there any member of the council like to pull any item for discussion? If so, we'll hear that at 1:30. Seeing none, we'll take this out to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to discuss any item that you see on the consent calendar? This is the opportunity to come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes once you give us your name and address. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve the... Yes, Member Olivier.
I would like to remove an item from the consent calendar. Was the item pertaining to the consultants for the...
Yes.
Yeah, that was removed already?
1F, yes, sir.
Okay, then if that was removed, then I don't have any items to pull. Thank you.
Motion to approve?
Sure.
Second, by Member Brand. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 6-0 with Member Baines absent. Okay, we'll move right along to the General Administration. Item 2A, actions pertaining to a memorandum of understanding for city employees in Unit 3. Good morning.
Good morning, Council President, members of the Council. Jeff Cardell, Personnel Services Director, and I'm pleased to report that we have an agreement with the Fresno City Employees Association. We're asking for your approval today of a resolution to approve the Memorandum of Understanding, as well as amendment to the salary resolution to implement the wage improvements. The MOU includes a number of changes, including wage increases, increased retirement contributions for employees, changes to leave accruals, changes to the health and welfare premium payments. I do have a couple of corrections to make in terms of the final MOU document. In particular, references to FY 2011 on sick leave payment relative to the HRA on pages 42 and 43 need to be stricken. Relative to the use of sick leave, consistent with AB 1522, sick leave is available after 90 days rather than 6 months. We'll be making that correction. And lastly, we've changed the ID technicians to crime scene technicians, so we'll be making those corrections. With that, we'd ask for your approval, but I'd also like to give Dee Barnes, the president of FCEA the opportunity to come up and speak on this issue as our partner in this process.
Thank you very much. With that, any member of the public wishes to comment on this, please come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes. And nice to see you, Dee.
Thank you,
The
Council
floor is
President.
yours.
I just want to thank the city and council members for finally getting to this point. It's been a long 2 years, actually over 2 years. So I know my members are very thankful. They're looking forward to the check that'll be coming towards the end of October, because many of them have really suffered over the last couple of years. Our community was really hit hard, and they're very appreciative of this. And we're hoping that going forward, we're going to look for some exciting changes with being able to partner with the city on some issues. So I just want to thank you very much, and on behalf of all my members, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public wish to come forward and comment on this item? This is the opportunity. Seeing none, back here, Member Soria, did you have some comments? No? Okay. And if the screen is clear, do we have a motion to approve? I'll make that motion, seconded by Member Quintero. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 5-0 with members Olivier and Baines absent. Thank you very much. Next is item 2B, workshop, agreement establishing the North Kings Groundwater Sustainability Agency as a joint powers authority. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Council President, City Council. I think it's this one. Okay. So, Council President, City Council, this is a workshop for you today, updating you on where the City of Fresno is in relation to compliance with the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which was passed in September of 2014 by the governor, related to groundwater management in the state of California, and more specifically Central Valley and overdrafted conditions that currently exist. As indicated, this law was put into effect September of 2014, requires local public agencies to form groundwater sustainability agencies to manage groundwater in designated geographic areas. Public agencies are defined as those agencies that have water supply responsibilities, water management responsibilities, or land use responsibilities. So basically, cities wind up being the bearers of this responsibility. Counties are involved. In the event a city decided not to get involved, the county would then have the opportunity to implement a program. And if they decline to implement the program, then the state would come in, and the state doesn't get to decline the opportunity. They would have to come in and implement the regulations associated with the law. So the deadlines we're working against is by June 30th of 2017, groundwater sustainability agencies have to be established for medium and high priority basins. City of Fresno is in the Tulare Lake hydrologic region, identified as a high priority basin for groundwater management. We have to, as a group of agencies, come together and prepare a groundwater sustainability plan by January 31st of 2020. So we've got a little less than 4 years, about 3 years and 9 months to get that prepared. We are in the Kings Subbasin. It's designated 5-2208, and we're in the larger San Joaquin Valley Basin, 5-22. Again, we're a high priority basin. Once this agency is established, we'll have to report to the state every year on how groundwater conditions are in our area, and then every 5 years we'll have to report out on, either we made it or we didn't make it, and what are our plans to get to corrective action. We have to be sustainable by January 31st of 2040. So we've got a long lead item, but the way the law is written is if the waters continue to decline or degrade, corrective action, the state can require corrective action. So we'll be reporting all along the way. Sustainability gold means that the groundwater basin is operating within its sustainable yield. You know, that as we've always talked about when we were doing the rate, the 218 process, think about it as a checking account. We can't overdraw our checking account on a go-forward basis for groundwater. And we have to, what's that maximum yield that we can pull out of the ground without either causing a quality condition or an overdraft condition. So defining the sustainable yield is going to be a big deal for our area. As you probably hear, different crops in the area. Citrus might take 4 feet a year. Pistachios might take 2 feet a year. All those numbers will get it. Those numbers will still exist for those crops, but the amount of water you can actually pull out of the ground to support that is what's going to be impacted by this law. So they've defined the undesirable results as lowering the groundwater levels, reducing groundwater storage. Seawater intrusion is not really an issue for us. That's really most for the coastal agencies. Degraded water quality, contaminant plume migration, that exists here in the city of Fresno. Land subsidence, not so much in our area. That's more east of Fresno and south of Fresno. So the soils and the geology in our area are pretty resilient to the overdraft. We just can't have an overdraft condition. Is not healthy for us. And then there's the depletion of interconnected surface water. So where this could come into play in our area is the San Joaquin River. If the groundwater levels get overdrafted, you create dry conditions in the stream bed of the San Joaquin River, and that could be something that could require corrective action. So that's another thing we'll have to be watching. So this Kings Subbasin that we're in, the 5-2208, is this colored area right here that you see. And right now the plan is that there will be 5 such agencies in this basin. We are the North Kings Subbasin, 1,000 square miles in the whole basin, 2 counties, a lot of cities, a lot of irrigation districts, a lot of different uses in the water and the availability of surface water and groundwater. And again, we're looking at probably 5 to 6 groundwater sustainability agencies just in our area. And we will have to coordinate with those agencies, so all these different colors will at some point have to have an overarching agreement amongst themselves as to how they're going to coordinate between the basins. So, and that'll be a requirement of the state. We just can't submit our plan to the state and say, here we are, we're sustainable. The state will say, well, tell me about your other colors here, what are they doing? And so we'll have to come together on the state and present that overall plan on managing the groundwater in this subbasin. So, North Kings Groundwater Sustainability Agency, these are the agencies that are partners to the JPA. We have allowed these other agencies to kind of proceed forward and get the JPA approved. We wanted to kind of wait after they had kind of gone through their process. Do we see if there are any changes along the way? All the documents have stayed the same. So we are the ones who are going to bring this up. We're the anchor leg of this relay race. So you can see the Fresno Irrigation District, Fresno, Clovis, Kerman, Fresno State, Bakeman, Biola, Pinedale. Malaga and Pinedale, I should point out, they will be not members of the JPA. They will sit outside the JPA, but they'll still be guided by the regulations associated with this agency. So how did we get here? A lot of agency and stakeholder input. Hats off to Fresno Irrigation District. They did a lot of great workshop and outreach efforts with the ag community, east and north and west and south of their area. They did a great job getting out and talking to the farm community. Kings River Conservation District, we had a lot of disadvantaged community participation through the Community Water Center and self-help. Fresno State is a groundwater pumper, so they'll be part of this program. And then we had a number of independent groundwater extractors were part of the process as well. The school systems have pumping that they do, so they've been at some of the meetings. I think Gallo has been in some of the meetings. A lot of agencies that just have their own pumping systems that don't have land use, don't have water supply responsibility, water management responsibilities have been part of this process. And then fortunately the state, and again I'll give FID credit, they were able to secure a grant with the state to get a third party in here to facilitate, herding of all these cats to try and get around a JPA that we could all agree to. So the way the process flowed out is that once we had the facilitator on board, there were one-on-one meetings with all the agencies. What are their wants, their desires, their expectations. That was put together in a report. And then the outcome of that was, let's move forward and do this as a JPA. That's one of the things that's outlined in the law as an option to create this. You can do MOUs, you can do other documents, but the JPA was believed to be the best approach for us. The JPA board will be comprised of elected officials from each of the agencies. And then there's a voting membership for Public Utility Commission type entities. Bakeman, for example, by law can't be part of the JPA, but we can contract with them separately outside of that process so they can become part of the organization. So we had a committee that drafted the first round. We used a lot of the language that had already been crafted in the Groundwater Management Act. We have a JPA with the Kings River Water Authority. FID has that, and it's a good model we were using. And we found other JPA documents up and down the state from all the way as far north as Shasta down to the Bakersfield area that we kind of modeled some of the language off of. Done in 2 phases. We had a lot of just committee workshops on what are the operational things we need to have in the JPA, and then once that process got defined, then we turned it over to all of our representative legal counsels. Our legal counsel was Amanda Freeman. She participated with all the other attorneys from all the other agencies, and I was very impressed the way they came together and found a way to craft a final document for us to all consider for adoption. So the powers that are in that Groundwater Management Act law are pretty impressive. They're pretty broad. It's a government agency. It's a body politic able to do things just like a city or a county. It can develop and adopt a groundwater sustainability plan. That will be the plan it's the rule book. Basically, this is how we're going to reach sustainability. We're going to pump this much. We're going to pull this much out of the ground. We're going to recharge this much. When water's available, we're going to do these things. We're going to do these projects. It's a very extensive type document. It can conduct investigations, which means if we need to get on private property to assess, how much water is being extracted, we can conduct those types of investigations. We can monitor and regulate groundwater extractions. We can assess. This agency can assess fees and charges, just like any other agency. And then there's a requirement that, again, it's got to coordinate with all the other agencies that are going to be located around us. We got to report to the state, and it has the ability to procure new water resources if they become available under its own name. I'm not sure we would pursue that, but that's a power that's available to it. And again, the list of powers that were afforded the GSAs is a pretty extensive list in the law, and we didn't list all of them, and we're not planning on using all of them, but there are a lot available. So here's the membership. As it's kind of currently, it's a 7-member board. 4 of the members are permanently seated on the board. So City of Fresno is permanently seated, FID is permanently seated, Fresno County is permanently seated, and the City of Clovis is permanently seated. Garfield Water District, International Water District, and FID are going to share one of the seats. They'll go on a rotating basis. There's a small agency seat that'll be shared with Kerman, Biola, CSU Fresno, and Bakeman, and then there's an at-large appointment for some of the other entities to be part of the, so that was really like where Bakeman could participate, a school district could participate, other agencies can participate in the rulemaking and the enforcement administration of the rule and of the law. So we have the joint exercise of the powers, that's what we're using. Again, the JPA provides opportunities for entities not covered to participate. Board of Directors require a separate agreement. So again, that's where we're going to have Bakeman and maybe some of the universities and some of the other agencies can participate through a participation agreement. Similarly, with interested parties, we'll allow them to participate through a memorandum of understanding with the base GSA. Contracting entities, so Bakeman and CSU Fresno are 2 of the agencies that we anticipate will participate through these other agreement documents. So in looking at how we'd want to get it set up, there's been a preliminary look at what committees might be associated with this North Kings GSA. So there's a Rules and Budget Committee. So one of the things that this agency will have to do establishes rules and ordinances that people have to comply with. So there's that committee, along with the budget and the finance elements. A lot of what we'll do will be based on groundwater modeling data, how much water we put in, how much water we put out, the direction of flow as it relates to other agencies. That'll be a modeling exercise. So there'll be a committee for that. The Plan Advisory Committee, the GSP, just are we on target? Do we need to make an adjustment? Do we need to make more investments? There will be a public interested party outreach committee. The law is pretty clear that you have to make a real effort at reaching out to agencies that aren't, organizations and entities that aren't local governments. And so the disadvantaged community areas, some of these other areas have to be part of the process. So we're doing that. And then we have the interbasin coordination. So this is just a preliminary list. Once the board is seated, they'll make a call on, all of them, some of them, none of them, different. But right now we're giving them some guidance on, here's some rules, here's some committees that we believe should be considered as part of the go-forward plan for the organization. So there is a process for how the voting goes, so in a hierarchy, so unanimous votes of the directors for critical issues, so like the GSP, the groundwater sustainability plan, any amendments to the JPA, and then the adoption of fees and charges have to be unanimous as well. We have affirmative votes, 5 directors on what we could consider the important issues, taking on debt, obligations, policies, enforcement, litigation, these items here, or to remove a member, and all the other ones will be a simple majority. And again, this is all subject to adjustment based on the new board getting seated and determining that they want to take a different approach on making some of these decisions. So we have to. One of the things that's allowed in the law is that this organization can generate fees, assess fees to generate revenue. But there won't be any revenue on this. This committee won't have any revenue. So there was a calculation made on member participation, financial participation of all the entities based on how much water you pump out, how much surface water you have available, how much demands you have. So it was an attempt to make an equitable assessment of who needs to pay what for the first 3.5 years of the organization's existence prior to adopting a fee that will be assessed to people pumping water. There were 15 alternatives looked at based on, again, groundwater pumped and seat on the board. We did a budget projection for today through January 2020. It's about $1.9 million. Most of it is technical and legal services. We'll have to adopt ordinances, rules, regulations, and we'll have to prepare this groundwater sustainability plan and do this model. So it's really technical and legal services that will require. FID has agreed graciously to be the administrative person for the organization, so they'll have somebody that kind of takes the notes and does the meeting and does the financial accounting for the organization until a determination is made. Should that be inside the organization or should that continue to remain outside? We're trying to keep a small footprint for this government, and so FID's agreed to kind of help us with that. So here is the budget breakdown by agency. Fresno Irrigation District is the most heavily impacted. They're at 32% of the $1.9 million. We're second at $416,000 at 21%. You can see the next one is Fresno County. Fresno County has a unique challenge because there are going to be 5 or 6 of these agencies in the county. So you might want to look at that number and multiply it by 5 or 6 for Fresno County, and they've got a big number they've got to come up with, and they're looking forward to trying to figure out how to put that together. So, Mr. Quintero, that'll be something that'll come to you in short order. So again, we're at $1.9 million. Again, mostly legal services and technical services to kind of get all of our paperwork in place and our groundwater sustainability plan in place. Again, to do the groundwater sustainability plan, we're going to pursue Prop 1 funding now that we'll have an organization. We can, as an entity, can apply for grants and those types of things. So there's $100 million out there. We plan to submit an application for funding. It'll be a 50% match. So if we can get the $1.9 million out there and wind up spending only $900,000, that'd be great because we get the match. guidelines for the grant aren't out yet, but as soon as they are, we'll prepare our package. And again, we think we can get, $500,000 to $1 million to offset that $1.9 million that were identified earlier. So we're keying up to kind of get this application package into the state. And the state wants these things to be successful, so they are making an investment to help agencies move this thing along. It's a little difficult to read, but we're here at October 2016, so again, we're the last agency to adopt. We'll bring that back to you in October. We're not asking you to adopt it today. We just wanted to give you a briefing on it now, and then give you a couple of weeks to ask any questions or do any additional research. But we'll bring this back to you on October 13th. Our first meeting of this board, it'll be on another slide, is November 16th. So they've already got a date when they want to set for the board to meet. We have to have all our paperwork in to DWR by June 2017. This is one of the steps we have to go through. We have to submit our declaration that this footprint is the area we want to manage with regard to groundwater. There's a lot of going on in the state where an agency is establishing, this is the area I want to manage for groundwater, and then another agency comes and says, well, I want to manage this area, and there's a lot of overlap, so those things will have to be adjudicated somehow. But we don't have that issue here. We've worked closely with our neighbors, and so everybody knows kind of where their boundary and their footprint's going to be, so we're in pretty good shape. So here's kind of where we are. Today we're giving you a briefing on what this JPA is about to establish this new government organization. That's what it is. It's a new government organization here in the city of Fresno. October 13th, we'll bring the final JPA agreement to you for approval. And again, all the agencies will approve prior to that, so we'll be the last ones, which is how we had proposed it to the group. If approved, the mayor will serve as the director, and the mayor's position will appoint the alternates. November 16th, that is the first meeting of the North Kings GSA Board of Directors, so it's more of a orientation, get to know things for those of you or anybody who have Form 700s. Is another Form 700 you'll have to fill out and add to your list of Form 700s. And then once we do that, then that board will sit, and then they'll transmit to the state. We declare we want to manage groundwater in this geographic area, and then the ball starts rolling on a number of different other milestones we have to meet for the state's application requirements. So that is the summary of where we are. It's been September 14th, so it's been about 2 years, almost 2 years and 8 days since the law went into effect, and we have a proposal in front of you and all the other agencies in this area to create a new government agency to manage groundwater in the FID service area, but it's really, we got to coordinate with all the other people as well, basically throughout Fresno County. So with that, be prepared for any questions.
Thank you, Tommy. Excellent presentation. I know 2 years, 8 months went by like an instant, but you and your team have done a diligent job as always, and we appreciate that. We really do. This is a workshop, so we'll not take it out to the public. So we'll bring it right back up here. Member Soria.
I had a point of order, but I'll wait after the discussion.
Okay, that's fine. Next will be Member Brandow.
Thank you, Council President. Great presentation, Tommy, although I'm going to ask that you meet with myself and my staff. I want to do another round of this before October, before the meeting in October. A couple questions that I have up front, though. How many of these agencies are being set up? Well, there's one agency for the state, but then how many regional, is this a JPA? How many
this
regional
is JPA.
JPAs are being set up across California?
That's good. So there are 515 basins that are subject to this law in the state. So our 5-2208 is one basin. Our basin is going to have 5 GSA. So you might want to look at 515 as the boundaries the state wants regulated, multiplied by worst case 5, so that'd be 2,500 of these agencies, maybe down to 1,000. There's going to be a lot of new government agencies created as a result of this law.
So, just in my own mind for clarity, is this map that you showed with the 5 different colors, is that itself one agency with a statewide agency that oversees all of these regions?
No, so that is can you go back? Oh, I can go back. So this map, sorry, Yeah, this map. So this map is one of the 515.
Okay.
And based on the hydrologic conditions, water availability, groundwater conditions, the determination was made by these groups, we need to separate our one basin into 5 sub-basins, really. So we've decided to, and so at the end of the year, this is where it'll get challenging. We will prepare a report talking about our conditions of groundwater in our little geographic area, and that'll get assembled with all the other agencies, and that one submittal will go to the state saying, in 5-2208, this is the groundwater conditions for these 5 sub-GSAs, and they'll have to be coordinated, but we were responsible for just our area right now. Now, if the state can come in and say, hey, you guys need to start playing nice with each other because we don't like how this is, the state can come in and force us to do things a little differently.
And then I'm also interested in, so the setup of this major agency for the state of California with all these sub-agencies, is the formula being done fair across the state, in your opinion, or you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, I do agree with how they prioritize. We are overdrafted. We are in an overdraft condition. And so it would make sense that we would be high priority for that. What's going to be challenging is the coordination between agencies. So I'll say it here. We've got a pretty good group. Ours was a pretty good group. Clovis, Fresno, FID, Fresno. It was a pretty good group. Some of the other groups around us have some institutional things they've got to work out to be at that level. But if they have difficulties, it creates issues for us because the state's going to look at us and say, look, you don't get to be yourself independent. We do recognize you can control this area, but you're really, as a group, responsible for that whole area.
Yeah, Tommy, and I've seen these similar situations on other issues, and sometimes the city of Fresno ends up carrying the burden for other areas that can't get their act together locally, and then we mitigate all of the air problems for everybody else that can't get their act together. We mitigate all the water problems for everybody else that can't get their act together. It all comes down to people being charged in the city of Fresno. It goes through the utilities department and then off into for some other. I would be very concerned about that.
That is a very legitimate concern. That is a concern to have. I'm not going to try and tell you that can't happen. The way this is set up, that could happen. And we're talking about that. So one of the discussions we have with the state is, if we have somebody that's having challenges carrying their weight, can you carve them out and leave them over there? And you, state, work with them directly, because we've done everything we can, short of giving our ratepayer money to them or our water to them, which we want to not do. Can you work with them? So we are having discussions about how do we carve these things out so that it isn't us bearing the burden. It is the state working with them to figure out how do you get through their challenges. But your concern is legitimate.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So I'll appreciate a separate meeting on this. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, Council President.
Great points, Member Brandau, really. Next is Member Olivier.
And I also would like to take advantage of a separate meeting with you, so we could schedule. I mean, we could do it together if you want to do that. We can have our staff schedule. Just a little curious on this JPA's ability to assess fees.
Wow.
Can you kind of go a little bit more in depth into that so that we can grill you?
So so the law is very clear. It can charge fees, charges, and penalties related to groundwater extractions. That'll be up to the JPA how they want to do that. But part of what has to happen is if you take out a gallon of water, if you define that the sustainable yield will pick 1 acre foot, 1 acre foot is all you can pull out of the ground. Somebody needs to pull out 2 for whatever crop they have, or if we have it. What's the mechanism for them to make a compensation payment for that extra foot they pulled out, and where's that going to come from, and how are you going to? So you're going to charge them based at the wellhead, put a meter on there. You're going to charge based on the crop. So there's a lot of different ways that charging can occur. One of the things we've done. No.
Charge based on the crop?
How much water it needs. If you have a crop that might, and again, this is just speculation right now.
Sure, no, I mean, that's
right now.
fine.
But if you have a crop, if the sustainable yield of the groundwater is 1 foot, and you have a crop that needs 4 feet, you're going to need to find a way to make up those 3 feet of water for your crop. How do we help that ag person do that? Is it buy water from us, buy water from the Bureau, find water on the market? How do we allow that farmer, that ag person to continue to do their business, but still operate within the confines of the sustainable yield of the water?
And these are all the kinds of things we can go over in our
Yes, exactly.
in our meeting. I guess the other question is there a bureaucratic commitment to support the JPA and
So right now,
will those be city employees that will support the JPA?
yeah, so right now, the FID has agreed to go ahead and take on the administrative burden, financial and the kind of the management administration. They've agreed to do that to get this thing out of the ground. Once the JPA is up and running, we've got the sustainability plan done, then another discussion will be, do we want to create dedicated staff for that government agency? Our position and the other agencies is we don't want to add more bodies to body counts. We want to see, can I do some things, can FID do some things, and be compensated for them, but the idea of creating a brand new organization of people is low on the list.
Right, because then we'd have to find a way to pay for the bureaucracy, and that would come from assessing. Right.
Correct.
Okay. All
Correct.
right. Well, let's meet. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Member Quintero.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just having a side discussion with our city manager and talking a little bit about the impacts that this is going to have with regards to the mandates and everything, and what the effect it's going to have basically on development and maybe even the farming sector. Can you touch on that and how it's going to affect the general plan as well?
Well, it's not just our general plan. For example, the modeling that Tommy referred to is going to show how much you're taking out, how much you can put in. And those models should eventually be incorporated into anybody's general plan. And if not, I'm sure there's going to be some legal challenges to why those assumptions that are developed by this JPA are not incorporated into a general plan, whether it's a city general plan, or county general plan. And as we've talked about, based on that model, then how do you mitigate the impact of the overdraft? And as Tommy was indicating, if you need 3 acre-feet to deal with a crop, that's one thing. But does the JPA now start selling water in order for some planned development to show a balanced portfolio? So this organization has far-reaching implications other than just the fees that they're going to charge. And I think there's individuals who have private wells, who don't realize that potentially that those fees are going to apply to them, even in some of the unincorporated areas around Fresno. And then we have, of course, then the cost of the fees and the challenges for a lot of the disadvantaged communities. And you have places like Easton and Carruthers and other places that the county's going to have to deal with because that's their issue. But the biggest implication is where and how people will be able to develop in the future. And the authority under this JPA to allocate funds, not funds, but allocate water or sell water in order to show a balanced portfolio.
So developers or folks that have bought land, not only for housing but for shopping centers, that kind of thing, projections that have land banked, I guess. So they're going to just have to go back to the drawing board and see what their land's worth now.
It depends on what that model shows. Absolutely.
Correct. So the other element of the law is that whenever a local government does a general plan amendment or any adjustment to their land use plan, this governing agency has to sign off on it that there is water to be able to do that change.
It's going to have a big effect on our local economy.
Yes.
I mean, even with the farming and ag.
Huge.
Okay. Thank you, City Manager.
Thank you. Member Brand?
Hey, Tommy, I forgot, what was the implementation date? Was it 2020?
2020, we have to be, the way the law is written is by January 31st, 2020, we have to be operating under a sustainability plan.
Have you been comparing notes with other counties and cities and what they're doing in the valley?
Yeah, not anything on the scale we're doing. I mean, we have with the rate plan you guys adopted, our plan is to get off the groundwater, get onto the surface water, and start to bank that for those drought conditions and so those other conditions. So
because of our unique situation,
Yeah,
with access to two major contracts,
we are in a very unique situation,
We're-
which
we're-
goes to Mr. Brandau's comment is, could that uniqueness be forwarded, made available to others, and we would be resistant to that. That's the way the JP has very specific language that we come to the table with these resources. Well, they're our resources. Nobody gets to tell us what to do with these resources. These are our resources. So that we had that language in there very specifically.
And I
for that.
recall from a couple of years ago, one of the presentations on how the ground table was dropping, and then you showed from the implementation of the Southeast Surface Water Treatment Plant and the ability to, and the expansion of the Northeast plant to collectively store more water, that over time, we're going to, and I forget how many years, it would restore that water table, that aquifer, right?
Correct. Our plan right now, just based on, this is prior to the heavy water conservation the governor ordered. We were planning on being about plus 20, anywhere from plus 15 to plus 20,000 acre feet into the groundwater table every year with our plan. That'll get adjusted because the governor wants to do some other stuff on conservation, so that number might go up. But the plan is to bank water with our surface water facilities and reduce groundwater pumping.
Right. So even in drought years, we're still banking water, and we get one big year, like it's been a while for a big year, but even last year was not that bad. Where there's a decent snowpack, and we can have that runoff. We have this ability, and the other thing too is that I think within 2 years from the reclamation of the sewer treatment plant, is that about 25,000 acre feet?
Correct. That's the target is 25,000 acre feet. Right now, we're making 10,000 acre feet pretty easily available to ag. We'll get another 5,000 acre feet, and we've got a plan to just keep making that number bigger.
So within, let's say, a 5 to 10 year period, say 10 years for sure, continuing the development of the recycled water, extensions of the Purple Pipe system, hopefully through the entire city, there'll be a day, really, within the next 10 years when parks like Roding Park, Woodward Park, all the parks in our city can be watered through recycled water. The fountain in front of City Hall will be recycled water, which would take, if it's 25,000 acre feet or 30, that's really the equivalent of 1 year's water supply. So really, in essence, although it's used for landscaping only, which is still, 2/3 of the water use, landscape?
Correct.
Okay, so in and of itself is going to have a tremendous relief on the aquifer that this God-given thing we had here in our valley that has been overused and depleted. We have an opportunity, a historical opportunity, to really change that.
Absolutely, yeah. That's the plan. It's just the coordination pieces, and like Councilmember Quintero, how does it impact other sectors of the community?
Well, I'm thinking like Madera, for example. Now, there's a lot of plans for development in Madera, and I know people have water contracts and so on. Are they still going to have to reconcile these laws? I mean,
Absolutely. They will have to demonstrate a
so it's
balanced
not simply
portfolio.
I have a contract to deliver water. You're going to have to say for every acre foot I take out, I put an acre foot back in.
And you have to report that data every year to the state. April 1st of every year, you have to report, and here's how I did it. I took this much out, I put this much back in, and here's the levels in the groundwater.
And see, the real question is going to be is how does the state react? Do they send you a nasty letter saying you better not do that, or do they actually come out and do something? Because if in fact the state of California really aggressively pursues the legal ramifications of this law, it's going to have a profound impact on everywhere in the state of California, particularly in the valley here, that historically for years has just had a lot of growth. I think Fresno, we're in good shape, but Madera, so that's problematic then.
Correct. Yeah. Anybody who doesn't have the combination of resources that we've got is going to experience a challenge.
But if you have a project that you're doing now and you have it done by next year, you have it done before 2020, basically are you grandfathered in?
So that's one of the options that we have. We can decide whether we want to establish, I think it's January 1st, 2015 as the baseline condition that we want to use as a reference point, or we could establish that, no, we want to establish a higher number. Right now our thinking is let's go with January 1st, 2015 as the benchmark, and then everything above that is just water in our savings account, our bank.
Right, and I know people always, think of water and they think of residential use, but really water has an industrial use to it too. I mean, you talk about a food processing plant is a very intense water user. And so we might be in a position in the future with recycled water to offer that as an incentive to a new industry or an expanding industry at a reduced, subject to Prop 218, or even to our agricultural partners, subject to the myriad of and complex laws of water rights. But there's potential there to partner with agriculture, to offer incentives for job growth, manufacturing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So right now, just our first phase of our recycled water system, just because we want to test it, we'll have an ag person that's connected to the system.
Right.
So we want to understand how do we interact with those guys and get good at that. We have discussions with some industrial people connecting to the system, some discussion. We have the cemetery, certainly we want to do them. Schools and some of the single-family residential. So we want to just kind of get a broad use of this water to understand the hydraulic dynamics of how we would do that, get good at it. And like you said, then we can just jump whenever somebody needs that type of service, we can just connect them and go.
And on the 2 surface water contracts, the one is 30 years with San Joaquin River, is that correct?
40 years.
40 years, okay, so that's a done deal. Okay.
That's a done deal.
And we're still working with FID regarding the transfer and conveyance of water. And this has been done on a gentleman's agreement for the last 40 years, right?
Yeah, so that'll be coming to you probably the next 90 days. I think we're kind of working on it.
We're going to codify that agreement then?
Oh, yeah, in the next 90 days.
And then therefore, the city would have a long-term, in both surface water sources, the Kings River and the San Joaquin River, long-term, multi-year contracts that really almost bless this region for years to come with ample water that I think if this drought continues, the rest of the state is going to be in really dire straits, and we're going to be in a position to really have a major influence on how things go in the state of California.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, Member Brandow. Member Brand. Next is Member Brandow.
All right, Council President, so I'm not going to speak to this again, except to say that Councilman Quintero, Councilman Brand brought up a couple of items about us locally, and this is why it is. So, we've been doing a fine job. We almost saw this coming, and so it was. We're in a great position in the city of Fresno. It goes back to my point about carrying other people that are in not so great of positions, and our ratepayers carrying them. But it also reminds me how vital it is to have the Southeast Surface Water Treatment Plant run at peak performance and hit the projections that we're looking for, so that we as a city are pulling even less groundwater than the state is putting demand on us. And earlier today in our consent calendar, I know it passed, but we had a couple of consultants that were that the city of Fresno was going to hire to make sure that we get our water dialed in, especially this thought of blending surface water with well water, blending those two waters, make sure it's the right water when it hits the doorstep of our community. And so I think it's fantastic what we're doing in advance on the surface water treatment plant to make sure that we're completely covered. We're doing everything that we can do to pull less groundwater to make our contribution to the state's demand. So thanks for staying on top of it, and thanks, Council, for helping us by voting for those consultants this morning.
Thank you, Member Brandow. Did you, Member Sawyer, you punched up on this?
Yes, thank you, Council President. And so I have a point of order. I know that my colleague just mentioned about the vote on the consultants. Actually, this morning I was a little disheveled, so I didn't have an opportunity to look at the items that I was planning to pull. So I would like to the council to reconsider adoption of the item 1E on the consent calendar and pull it for contested consent. I do think that we should at least have a public presentation and let the public know why we are hiring these consultants.
Actually, item 1E was approved when it was called forward, so perhaps you could take this offline with whoever you like to talk to about it. But it has been approved. It's history.
Well, so I'm asking, and I guess I'll have to make a motion because I'd like to have a public presentation on it.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'm not sure I understand the motion.
So I'd like to pull the item to be heard because we just had it on consent, so we didn't have any public presentation. And so I want to pull the item off consent like we do on every time we meet, we want to hear items.
The item's been voted for and passed.
Yes, but I'm asking for reconsideration, so that's my ask. So I asked the attorney if I could do that, and he said that I could make that motion if the council president wasn't agreeable to allowing.
It's not that I'm agreeable. We've already conducted the business. But is there a second to that motion? Seeing none, that motion dies. Okay, next, it's 10:04. Thank you, Tommy.
Great, thank you.
You know what? I always complain about us cleaning up messes. Well, this time you've prevented a mess. And you and your team,
that's our
well,
plan.
we're well on our way.
Yes.
And 2 years, 8 months of your diligence, again, is fantastic. You put us in the best position possible through the administration and confirmed by this council. So we're preventative measures as opposed to the.
And I want to thank Amanda, too, as well, for helping us get this thing across the finish line. She did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, next we're going to go to our timed items. It's 10:04. The first timed item for 10 a.m. is a hearing to adopt resolutions and ordinance to annex territory and levy a special tax, and this is in District 5. Oh, it is on page.
Morning, Council President, members of the council. I'm Andrew Benelli with the Public Works Department. We have before you today a annexation to Community Facilities District number 11. This is for final map 6067. This is a project on Locan, near, I believe, Shields Avenue. You may remember that this project was approved a few months ago for a Community Facilities District. They've asked, the developer has asked for some changes in the CFD to add some improvements to the park. Staff is supportive, and we're recommending your approval of this. I believe the annual amount of the assessment is $519.55. We have received back approval of the ballots from all of the landowners. We recommend approval.
Thank you very much. We'll take this out to the public. Is there anyone in the public here today who wish to come forward and talk about this? This is your perfect opportunity. Seeing none, back to the council. Member Quintero.
Tremendous presentation, Mr. Benelli. Very informative, detailed. Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Member Quintero, seconded by Member Brand. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 6-0 with Member Baines absent.
Council President, I'd like to announce that on that particular item, that the resolutions are subject to veto, all of them, and on the next item, and they're not marked on the agenda that way.
Good, thank you. The record will so reflect. Okay, 10:05 item, to adopt resolutions and ordinance amending final track map, and that's in maybe the best district in the city, District 4.
Thank you. Andrew Benelli again with Public Works Department. Again, this is an annexation to Community Facilities District number 11. This is annexation number 72. It's for final track map 6124. Project being built by Pulte Homes on Temperance and California. We have received back the ballots. All of the landowners are in support. Their annual assessment will be $948.32, and staff is recommending that after public hearing that you adopt the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Benelli. Another fantastic presentation. And this again is subject to veto, Madam Clerk, correct? Thank you. Okay, we'll bring this out to the public. Is there anyone from the community that wishes to come forward? This is the opportunity, and you'll have 3 minutes after you give us your name and address. Seeing no one approaching our microphone, we'll bring it up here. I'll make a motion to approve. Second by Member Quintero. All those in favor? Those opposed? Passes 5-0 with Members Baines and Soria absent. Okay. We have 2 minutes before the next timed item. I would go to another, yeah. item on the calendar, but 2 minutes is not in our vocabulary. Does anyone have any comments they'd like to make for 1 minute and 40 seconds?
I'd like to hear your rendition of Moon River. Jeff Roberts, you
No,
want to
you
come up and
don't.
sing a
You
song?
All those in favor?
Chief Dyer, would you like to come sing a song?
You wouldn't want that.
No volunteers?
Oh, no. Yeah. So, Member Brandau, how was your golf game yesterday at the fundraiser?
My golf game is really nothing to be spoken about today. and I'm not the only one. Neither was Chief Dyers.
Oh, okay.
Fortunately, there were other members on our team that did okay.
Very good. And you raised a ton of money for our community, which is
That
the
was
important
main
part.
goal, yes.
Absolutely.
I heard you guys were playing military golf. Left, right, left, right.
All right, folks, it is 10:10, and we are on the next timed item. It's a hearing to consider a plan amendment in Council District 2, and we'll take this to our staff. Good morning, sir.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Bruce Barnes, Development Department. Before you, you have a plan amendment and a rezone. There was no opposition at the Planning Commission hearing, so staff does recommend approval.
Thank you very
I'd be happy
much.
to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Anyone in the community wish to come forward and comment? This is the opportunity. You have 3 minutes after your name and address. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the council. I'm Jeff Roberts, speaking on behalf of the Waterford Foundation, which is an entity related to Granville Homes, and our business address is 1396 West Herndon in the city of Fresno. For the record, I'd like to state we do concur with the recommendation of the implementation committee from this district, with obviously the recommendation from staff, and with the full, it was a unanimous recommendation from the Planning Commission a couple months ago. So I could answer any questions, but if not, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to come forward? This is the time for your comments. Seeing none, we'll close the comments section and bring it back up here to the council. Member Brandau.
Yeah, Council President, that's in District 2. And Jeff, I wanted to ask a question. So this is the one that's intersected by the power lines?
That's correct.
This
This property is bisected by a major PG&E easement that crosses in a diagonal fashion.
Cool. And I met with a couple residents nearby, and you guys also met with the residents.
We did.
You take, as always, you take in their concerns
Right.
in your planning of that development, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Well, then I'm going to make a motion to approve, Council President.
Motion by Member Brandau. I'll second it. All those in favor? The opposed? Passes 4-0 with members Brand, Soria, and Baines absent. Thank you. All right, it's the next timed item is 10:15, so we'll go back to our regular calendar. No. Good morning, Ms. Furtado.
So item 2C, right? General
That is
amendment?
yes, it is. Thank
Okay,
you.
so Kelly Furtado, thank you, Council President. I will make my presentation brief as well to try to keep you on schedule. Today I am before you with the Department of Resource Management, and that is the Assistant Director of Neighborhood Services. Sorry, I skip the introduction very often. Presenting the CAPER, the Program Year 2015 CAPER You have all received the report. You have a very thorough staff report. You have a very large public review draft that's been given to your offices. I'm going to make my comments brief. I want to do three things. I want to make sure to acknowledge the staff that's here today that did all the work for these programs. They've made tremendous progress catching up on a lot of prior year programs. And I want to give you an update on the public review process. There was a public hearing, and I want to let you know about the 3 comments that were made. There have been no written comments to this point. And then I want to also just kind of briefly let you know that we have enhanced our outreach efforts as well with some no-cost opportunities, because we've heard loud and clear from the council that you like our programs to have a little bit more comprehensive outreach. So first of all, I'm going to just kind of go in order. You guys all know Jennifer Clark. Erica is our project manager for our CDBG programs. Erica, if you could give a wave. I like faces and names here. John Turnipseed is a relatively new project manager. He's been working on all of our rehab this last year, and he does rehab for several of our programs. Next to John is Dan Casey. Dan is our project manager for ESG, all the housing stuff, the HOPWA stuff, and the tenant-based rental assistance through home. Next to Dan is Bonnie. Bonnie has been with the division for some time and is support staff, and she is tremendous in helping us get through our housing and HCDC meeting as the commission. So next to her is Desi Garcia, lead certified through the state on Saturday when he passes his test, bright and shiny in the morning. And he works on the rehab. And then Kathy right next to him. And Kathy has returned from retirement to help us complete some programs as well. So we're really happy to have her back on a part-time basis. So probably half of our team is not sitting in the front row. We've had a few people that were unable to join us today, but this is the folks. I wanted to make sure you had faces with names. I think that's really important for the work that we do. And just to thank them, and plus a lot of the other divisions that have provided the work that is now reported on in this CAPER. So the CAPER is simply a report. It is required by HUD. It is due on September 29th. And we're here in front of you asking for your approval to submit it to HUD. It's kind of awkward. This is the first time we've asked for approval on this document. We recognize it is not final because the public comment process closes today, and we have to incorporate any comments that we receive into that final report. So once it is finalized, we're asking for your authorization to submit that final report to HUD and meet yet another HUD deadline. So we're really excited about that. The public outreach process. So we enhanced our efforts and did social media. We developed a flyer in English and Spanish that was more customer friendly. We sent it out to over 500 individuals on emails and organizations, asking them to share that as well. It's been made available at the downtown library, at all of our community centers and our neighborhood centers. We've done our required publications. We are still learning a little bit about, the timelines for getting into some of the other publications, such as Vida en el Valle. We missed that deadline, but we're going to be working on that for our next outreach opportunity. And we're really looking forward to our future website having a little bit more customer-friendly interaction opportunities for things like this that require public comment. The public hearing was done on September 14th through the HCDC. The HCDC recommended that the council approve this process, and there were 3 individuals that made comments. Again, the public comment period ends today, so we will continue to take public comments. We have received at this time no written comments. I want to just really quickly go over the oral comments that were provided at the public hearing, and they will also be included in the final report, but it was I did not see them here today, so I'll summarize their comments. Diane Smith with HEAT, and Diane's comments were really getting clarification on the timelines. She had requested information on prior year funds. There's reference throughout the document about prior year funds, so she wanted more clarity on which years they were related to, and then she also had concerns about Restore Fresno under the impression that it was a program that was perhaps taking money from CDBG areas. We clarified that that was not the case, and all those things can be enhanced in the final document and clarified for to address her questions. Brunette Harris with HEAT also spoke, and her major concerns were that the HCDC should, instead of be doing public hearings on site, they should be doing them in the neighborhoods and doing workshops. She also felt that there should have been public input long before the draft was produced. And then Ashley Werner with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. She commented, had not read the document thoroughly, and she anticipates submitting written comments by the end of today, but her concerns were primarily regarding the analysis of impediments and the actions, the proposed actions that were handled in a different document, that they didn't necessarily address the concerns for her. So she was going to, again, restate her concerns for this opportunity in written format. And that was it for the public comments. We have been, like I said, we've been improving the final document, and we are here before you today just asking for authorization to submit it to HUD and, again, meet the deadline. Happy to answer questions.
As usual. We'll take it out to the public. Anyone in the public wish to come forward and comment? This is your opportunity. Once you've given us your name and address, you'll have 3 minutes. Okay, seeing none, back up to the dais. Motion to approve by Member Quintero, second by Member Brand. I just would comment that thank you for another brilliant job. And I understand that the people in that front row, and you are front row people, you deserve to be there. We thank you, each and every one of you, for your participation. And it's a lot of hard work, and it's folks like you that keep this city going. So it's good to see your smiling faces. There you go. They're all smiling now. Good, good, good. Keep up the good work. We sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
May I, if I could, Council President, I also want to extend my appreciation to Jennifer Kelly and the entire team. If you recall, it was just 2 short years ago, maybe 3, give or take. When you get to my age, they all become a blur. But we had a lot of challenges with our HUD funding and a lot of questions being raised. And I have to publicly extend my appreciation, the mayor's appreciation. I know the council feels the same way. I know if Council Member Baines was here, he had shared with me a number of conversations, very pointed conversations, shortly after I became city manager. His expectation that we would resolve these issues with HUD. And I've got to say, this team here has done a phenomenal job. Our relationship now with HUD is probably better than it has ever been. We just completed a couple of other audits. They came back with letters with compliments to the staff for the level of detail and the level of information. And this is another example of where we are delivering one of the HUD requirements on time and on schedule. And this is, again, a group effort, as well as the support from our outside consultants, but it is night and day compared to where we were just 2 or 3 years ago. So I, again, want to commend staff for all their hard work. This was not an easy ship to turn, but they did it.
Thank you very much, and we all concur with that, and I put it under my heading of preventing a future mess. You did it. You prevented it. We appreciate it. That's great. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 5-0. Member Soria and Baines absent. You know, I'd like to jump to item 2F, documents relating to a design phase for the realignment of G Street. And Mr. Benelli, again, welcome. This is item 2F.
If you give me just a moment, I have some graphics to add to the presentation. Again, I'm Andrew Benelli with the Public Works Department. This council item is in relation to an agreement with High Speed Rail Authority for the realignment of G Street. We're also asking for your approval of a resolution to allocate the funds into the budget so that we can start work. This first graphic you have shows the project area. It's on G Street near Ventura, between Ventura and Highway 41. This project came about, it's related to high-speed rail. High-speed rail will be following the railroad tracks in that area, and with their work that they're doing, they will be demolishing or purchasing the property that belongs to the rescue mission. So the rescue mission has asked that they'll be moving across the street onto land across the street that they own already, and the realignment of G Street will provide more property for them. It will also eliminate the vacant land that's between High-Speed Rail Authority's property and G Street. And I'll show you what is proposed. If you can see on this graphic, the new alignment for G Street. G Street will curve so that it's closer to high-speed rail. It'll move further east so that it will parallel the tracks, and the right-of-way for G Street will be adjacent to the right-of-way for high-speed rail. What we're asking you to do today is approve an agreement with high-speed rail for them to fund the design of this project. There'll be an amendment that you're also approving, or you're authorizing the Public Works Director to approve at a later time for construction. The total amount of the contract is $3.2 million. That pays for the design work and also the construction work. However, we're only allocating $350,000 at this time to fund the design work. That really concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions about this project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Benelli. Well done again. Okay, anyone in the public wish to come forward and comment on this? This is your time. Seeing none, we'll bring it back up to the dais. And the screen is clear for council comments. I'll make a motion to approve. Second by Member Brand. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 5-0. Members Soria and Baines absent. Thank you again.
Thank you.
We have our 10:15 item, but apparently we need 5 more minutes for another one of our dignitaries to arrive and have an opinion on that. Thank you all for being here. Okay, we'll move to item 2G, adoption G, as in G Street, and with the adoption of Americans with Disability Act. Is that too soon?
Maybe, I think there's a presentation, Scott, with that, and that presentation's probably 10 or 15 minutes. So if you wanted to get to, 2B. I think 2B or not 2B will be pretty easy.
All right, we'll go to that item. D as in David. We have so many poets up here. As comedians, in fact.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, as Mr. Marshall is coming up here, and I guess Chief Dyer is going to be making a presentation. I'd like to make a motion to approve both items for the new Southeast Substation and Bus Rapid Station, both in District 5, and it's for the part of the Fancher Creek development.
Absolutely. Right.
Chief Dyer's nodding his head yes. He doesn't have much more time to be here, so. Yeah.
Ooh. I'll second.
Will you move the officers from that district to District 5, please?
And 4.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion. Mr. Marshall, the floor is yours.
All right. I was hoping for the vote. All right. Essentially, this item is regarding the Department of Transportation endeavoring to purchase property at Argyle and Tulare. Essentially, we would build a BRT station there, also the police department, and ground lease back to PD for the construction of a future substation there. Essentially, the item's pretty clear. There are 6 items that staff recommends be approved in association with this main item. Any questions?
Thank you. We'll call you back. We have a question for you. Thank you, Mr. Marshall. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to come forward and comment on this? This is the opportunity. And no one is approaching. Therefore, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0, Member Soria and Baines.
Thank you
absent.
again, City Manager and staff, for all the hard work. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chief.
No, we'll go to, no,
Oh, E was pulled.
City Manager, you have a recommendation on the next item?
Council President, the 4A item, the council rules of procedure may not take long.
Okay, very good, thank you. It'd be great if I could find it. What page is that on? 13? I only have my document goes to page 10.
It's on page 9 of that one.
Okay,
It's towards the
thank
end
you.
of the agenda.
All right, thank you. We'll go to item 4A under City Council, a resolution amending the council rules and procedures to conform with the current practice to allow additional time for public comment by members of the public speaking through an interpreter. And this is a resolution I brought forward just to, I guess, face reality in the sense that we give 3 minutes per person to discuss an item. And if they go through an interpreter, it obviously takes a lot more time. So to be fair to everyone who comes forward to this body and makes a presentation or wishes to discuss an item, we would like to give them more time because of the interpretation process. So that's the resolution, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Council President, would you like me to highlight some of the other cleanup type changes?
Please, would you, City Attorney?
In addition to the extra time when an interpreter is being used.
What's the item number on it, real quick?
This is 4A.
Okay.
Towards the end of the agenda.
Okay.
All of the other changes are designed to reflect current practices that we've been doing in the last few years. Having to deal with when contracts must be signed before they're placed on the agenda, and clarifying, because this question has come up several times recently, when must a quorum be present on the dais during a meeting? And obviously, if it's for any vote to be taken, during any portion of a noticed public hearing, because it's important that we have at least 4 there for that, and then to start the council meeting. So that is clarified. It codifies the practice of what items are placed on the consent calendar, or actually, conversely, it says items that are over $500,000 will not be on the consent calendar. And then that codifies the practice of when you have an ordinance that requires introduction and adoption. Normally, if it's voted upon at introduction, then the next time when it comes back for adoption, it will be on the consent calendar. However, you're not required to vote on it at introduction. And then reflects how we handle friendly amendments, and on closed session documents, that they're to remain in the closed session room and collected by the city attorney's office. Again, just globally, these things are subject to the discretion of the council president to vary from these things also.
Thank you, City Attorney. Appreciate that clarification. And on the screen is Member Olivier.
Okay, I just had a couple of questions for, I guess, Mr. Sloan or for the council president. So these things are being codified, and because it seems to me that many of these items are at the discretion of the council president and the council president's office and at the discretion of the city clerk, correct? As it currently exists.
Largely, the charter says the council president is in charge of the agenda. So, yes.
So that we are codifying these items so that future council presidents cannot deviate from them? Or I mean, if what I'm trying to figure out is that if it hasn't been a problem since 1997, why do it now?
These are practices that we have engaged in for at least 3 or 4 years, and instead of periodic emails going out about what the current practices are, there was a desire to codify them so everybody's on the same page. Now, any council president can vary from these items if he chooses to, or she.
So these items that we're voting on today are non-binding? So this is like the ultimate email going out?
It's correct.
Say it that way.
All of the council rules are subject to variance with the council president.
So future, is it council's president or president?
Council presidents, I think.
So in the future, so basically we're not codifying anything. We're adopting a list of recommendations that I could deviate from next year, I could deviate from in 48 months.
That's essentially true of all of the council rules. For example, the order of business. Even though that's stated in the council rules, we have been varying from that.
Okay. My next question is, in terms of the interpret time, I'm interested in this. I like it. What is the what can you explain it to me?
That would be at the discretion of the council president.
Okay.
Well, there's a state law pending, I think, for the governor's signature that for any public body that has a limit on time limits for public speakers, for example, our 3 minutes, if they're speaking through an interpreter, it requires doubling the time. So we're codifying that now.
Well, I think that that's appropriate. I think that President Capriolio and folks who've been president before him in the past have done a fantastic job of running the meeting. And I mean, I guess if the state says we have to do it, we have to do it. But it's another one of those things where the state legislature is going to insert themselves into public proceedings in a charter city. It's ridiculous to me, no matter what the issue. So I'm interested to hear from my colleagues on this item. I probably won't be in support today simply because I don't think that it's something that we need to do. I think that the tradition and precedent in the of this body, I have found it to be as a member and also a former president. I found it to be very conducive to good public meetings. We do a good job here in Fresno. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Member Brandau.
All right, and Council President, you might be the one to answer this, or it might be City Attorney Doug Sloan. I also want to follow up and just clarify that these are essentially, they come down to recommendations. When you say we're codifying it, it sounds as if from now on, nothing under or nothing over $500,000 could be added to consent calendar. In the past, that's been the call of the Council President. I know it was while I was Council President. Next year, Councilman Olivier will be Council President, probably so. My question is, can Councilman Olivier, when he's President, even though we vote on that today, can he change it and add something over $500,000 to consent calendar at his discretion?
Yes, he would always have that discretion.
Okay. So it truly is today we're voting on a list of recommendations.
Well, that's essentially true of all of the council rules. That it's an established rule, but always the council president under the charter has the right to vary from that.
Okay. Okay. Then I'm okay with it. And then on the interpretation thing from the state of California, that doesn't currently exist, right? We're waiting a signature from the governor?
I believe that's correct.
And then once that's signed by the governor, we'll have no option on that?
That's correct.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Member Olivier, did you want to converse more? You got it.
Thank you, Council President. Would it be possible to bifurcate this, to take out the part that references the use of the interpreter and vote on it twice, so that way I could cast a vote to allow, that way I could cast a vote that would allow the organization to be in compliance with state law, but not to vote, or it would also allow council members to vote no on the other part of it.
Actually, I'll make a motion to amend my motion to bifurcate as you have requested.
I'll second your motion.
Thank you. Okay, screen is clear. We have a motion first to approve the portion relative to the interpreter and the time for public speaking. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 4 with 1 opposed, Member Brandau, and 2 absent, Member Soria and Baines. The next portion of that motion will be heard now. And all those in favor? Opposed? No. Passes 4-1 with Member Olivier voting no, Members Baines and Soria absent. Thank you all very much for that. Okay, I think we're ready for our 10:15 item. All our dignitaries have arrived. And I'll do a formal announcement. This is a resolution opposing Proposition 57, sponsored by members Brandau, Brand, Capriolio, and Chief Dyer. So, Member Brandau, would you like to make the initial presentation?
Yeah, I'll just get us started real quickly. So, Council President, very interesting how this came about. Several of us on council, as you know, were interested in making a public statement about Prop 57. And when we finally decided to do that, yourself, Councilman Brand, and myself, we reached out to Police Chief Dyer. We were also reaching out to Sheriff Mims and our District Attorney, Lisa Smitkamp. And when we reached out to Chief Dyer, he told us that he was also running a resolution. So essentially, although his resolution is much more wordy and less to the point than mine, we deferred to him being the expert, and we decided to run with his resolution and just join forces in opposing Prop 57. So I'm not going to be too wordy about it, but I would say that we know that Prop 47, we've already seen several years the damage of Prop 47 to the city of Fresno, and I believe cities around the state of California. And as one local talk show host declared, Prop 57 is like Prop 47 on steroids. So if Prop 47 was bad, it just really befuddles my mind how our governor can double down and take us out with Prop 57. And so, again, I think the governor is disconnected to what's happening in the cities of the state of California, at least in my opinion, the city of Fresno, when it comes to controlling crime. And so I'm very happy to oppose Prop 57. So I'll make a motion to approve this resolution, but I would like to hear from my fellow council members and also from Chief Dyer, District Attorney Smitkamp, and really anybody else who would like to speak on this issue.
Very good, thank you. We have a motion by Member Brandau, seconded by Member Brand. Member Brand, do you have some comments on this resolution?
I want to first thank the people that came today, Chief Dyer, former Mayor Alan Autry, Mike Reynolds, Three Strikes, HP's District Attorney Lisa Smitkamp. To me, this is a really big deal. Prop 57 is an absolutely disastrous proposition. It'll have disastrous consequences on the city of Fresno. State leaders make irrational decisions that have a profound impact on the lives of everybody in all the cities of California. And voters are misled by heavily financed propositions that are misleading, and they think they're getting a different package. And these propositions are passed and supported by politicians in Sacramento that don't have an ear for what's going on in the cities of California. And they've had a major impact on our city, including starting with the neutering of Three Strikes. That was a major effort by Mike Reynolds and others in that audience today. That is, the guy stole a pizza on a third offense. We didn't catch him for the other 25 offenses, but he's out of prison. Prop 47, as Steve mentioned, has had absolutely disastrous consequences on our city. And of course, the state prison realignment, these decisions to release thousands of people to the streets of Fresno is absolutely having a tremendous impact, including our Fresno County Jail with its capacity. It's having an impact on the streets of California. And politicians in Sacramento are in part responsible for the violence on our streets, including the 2 correctional officers that were gunned down a few weeks ago. And I could say, in part, There's a trail of blood from the streets of California cities to Sacramento. And we need to send a resounding message to Sacramento that the city of Fresno will oppose irresponsible policies and laws that endanger the lives of the citizens of the city of Fresno. And we need to make a stand. And in the future, we need to get other cities together to stop the madness and the irrational decisions that literally impact the safety of every citizen in Fresno and every citizen in every city in this state of California. So thank you for showing up and lending your support. And I think this council is going to send a big message to Sacramento that we want to put a stop to the madness. Thank you.
As a sponsor, my comments are in agreement with both my colleagues, but I have a little bit different perspective. As an attorney, I've discussed this resolution, our proposal, really, Prop 57, with defense attorneys, with prosecutors, with civil attorneys throughout my industry or my profession, and it's unanimous that this is a bad, bad proposition. And again, I concur with the comments of my colleagues. And we'll take it out to the public first, and that would be pursuant to the cards. H. Speets, it's your opportunity to address us. Again, welcome, and thank you for the invocation this morning. Oh, I'm sorry. H, could I go to the chief first? I'm sorry.
You bet.
We're doing sponsorship first, so.
I'll keep this space warmed up for him because I know
he was reaching for his weapon, so I thought I better get that clear. Good morning, Chief.
Thank you. Good morning, Council President, and I want to thank you for allowing me to co-sponsor this resolution. And this is something that I think should be on the hearts and minds of every single citizen in the state of California because of the importance of it. And just a little bit of a history. It goes back to a lawsuit that was filed against the state of California, stating that there was a poor inmate health care. And as a result, that was caused by prison overcrowding. That is what the nemesis is of all of these things in terms of trying to reduce the prison population. And that was what created AB 109, which was realignment, and ultimately pushed tens of thousands of individuals from the state system into local jurisdictions. And then obviously Proposition 47, which even magnified the problem that we're facing in local government today in trying to police that population. And so as we fast forward, we had a prison population of 170,000 people about 5 years ago. Today, the California prison population is under 130,000. So they have achieved the goals that were established by the 3-judge panel for prison overcrowding. There is not a need for any more propositions or legislation that would further decrease the size of our prisons in California, because we are now paying the price for that as citizens and in law enforcement. After having 4 consecutive years of violent crime decreases of 4%, 6%, and back-to-back years of 7% decreases, we have now had back-to-back years of 16% increases in violent crime in the city of Fresno. And it is because of the lack of consequences that are being provided to these individuals that we know to be violent offenders, career criminals, who are getting out of prison and coming back into our society and continuing with their same old lifestyle. We know what this proposition will do will further open the doors of our prison population and allow those individuals to come back through increased earned credits that will be given to them by state corrections. It, in essence, takes away the authority of judges. Judges determine what a sentence should be for an individual when they send them to prison. That sentence should be borne out. Unfortunately, this proposition would take that authority away from the judges, place it into the hands of corrections, and allow them to arbitrarily give good time credits to these individuals so that they could have a reduced prison sentence. And it doesn't distinguish between a first-time offender and a hardened career criminal. In the fact that a hardened career criminal who deserves more time in prison because of perhaps a gang enhancement or what other enhancement is given to them, it allows that individual to be given the same consideration and to be released from prison early back into our communities. We can't afford anymore. I have to tell you, over the last 4 or 5 years, it has been like trying to take a drink of water out of a fire hose with the massive influx of inmates and criminals coming out of the state system into our local jurisdictions. And we can't handle anymore. And it's apparent by the crime numbers. And I think it's important to know behind every one of those crime numbers in terms of increases, we're talking about victims and victims' families that are being impacted by these crimes and by these criminals. And so I want to thank this council for supporting this resolution so that we can get everyone to see the impact of this proposition.
Thank you, Chiefs. I guess what you're saying is there's no penalty or consequences for this type of conduct, and this just confirms it again, as it did in Prop 47. Thank you, sir. H, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm H. Spies, 392 North Calavera Street, Fresno, California. I'm a recovering mayoral candidate, and I'm currently working on the Fresno Public Policy Initiative through Fresno Pacific University. I'm here to speak in favor of your very good City Council resolution to oppose Proposition 57 on the November 8th ballot. As a city, we must see this proposition as another wake-up call, a wake-up call that says that we are in a public safety crisis right here in our city, a public safety crisis that's seen in 28 shootings in 30 days, a 16% increase in violent crime in 2015 and as high as 31% in 2016, the shooting of correctional officers in our county jail, the rise in home invasions, and a general, widespread, and growing fear among our citizens, north, south, east, and west. As one who has fought crime and gangs and the socioeconomic roots of these issues in terms of poverty and blighted neighborhoods consistently over the last 30 years, I'm concerned that we're not just returning to the chaos of the early 90s, but that in fact we are there. The question is, what is causing this public safety crisis and what can be done to address it? The main factor fueling our public safety crisis is a set of failed policies emanating from Sacramento, including prison realignment, AB 109, Prop 47 and the consequences of releasing convicted felons onto our streets by the thousands, and now Prop 57, promising an even greater number of prisoner releases onto our streets, turning the front door of our jail into a revolving door. The second factor is the lack of public safety resources allocated by the state to address this state-inspired local public safety crisis. For this reason, I encourage the passing of this resolution to oppose Prop 57. But more significantly, I'm endorsing and encourage my fellow citizens to endorse a more comprehensive public safety plan that Councilmember Brand has put forward, including 4 key components, and I'll close with these. The 4 key components of a comprehensive public safety plan are reforming public policy by defeating Prop 57 and rolling back Prop 47. Number 2, retaining 5% of our state income tax for local law enforcement. Right now, 0% of our state income tax is retained by our local jurisdiction for the benefit of our city. And number 3, increasing the number of police officers to 1,000 over the next 4 years. And finally, number 4, implementing a comprehensive community policing approach that will engage all of us with our police department in deterring and reducing crime. I want to commend you for taking the lead, and I hope that your leadership will be felt throughout the state and start a movement throughout our state to turn this around. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next will be our former mayor, Mr. Alan Autry. Good to see you. How does it feel to be back in these chambers? Like a tick on a hound dog's back?
Well, it's, as Yogi says, deja vu all over again, these faces. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. We are in a crisis. If you're out there on the streets, sometimes I've been in your seats. We can get kind of walled off from things a little bit and don't know really the level of which things are happening in our cities. Public safety crisis. We had 2 home invasions right around where I live the other night. 30 shootings, what was it? 28 shootings in 30 days. We're in it. And I want to commend all of you. I want to commend Councilmember Brand and Brandow for bringing forth this resolution. And I don't know if we really realize how important this is and how dangerous this Proposition 57 is, and the dangerous, dangerous times that we're in. Did we not learn from the early 90s as a city, as a state, as a country? We're there again. You're going to hear from Mike Reynolds in a moment here. I know I come from a movie background, but I'm not being overly dramatic when I say this. We're there. And I want to commend your wisdom and understanding of that issue. Now, the bad news is the polling says this proposition is probably going to pass. Then what? Does it end here? Are we the little chihuahua barking in the distance to Sacramento like we've always been, the people? Or do you this fight righteous enough, strong enough? Are the stakes so high that you can't let it end here? I think it's the latter. So what are you going to do? You know, H just pointed out a mayor, hopefully Mayor Brand's plan to take on Sacramento. Now, I said you got to fight Sacramento, and you do. But fighting does not inherently mean something bad. It means passion. It means you believe in something. And if you don't believe in defending the people of your city, it's the only public service that you put your hand on the Bible and raise your hand, promise to do, is to protect the people. People are not being protected. 40,000 with Proposition 47, another 50,000 coming out with Proposition 57, zero reduction in prison spending. They promised that it was going to go down, not a penny, still the same level. So my encouragement to you, my plea to you, is take the fight to Sacramento, because Lee Brand is absolutely right. There's a trail of blood from that jail lobby that leads you right to Sacramento. That individual should not have been out on the street. And a system that came this close to letting a Manson family member loose on us, just a governor's signature away. It's madness. You're absolutely right, Lee. It's absolute madness. But here's the good news. It can be stopped. We can have 30 more seconds here. I think this is just important because I don't get here very often. I hear the bell. Promise? Because I get one shot at this, and it's going to be up to you all. If you fight this, well, Alan, you can't beat Sacramento. Well, that gets my short hairs up. We've never lost in this state when we've taken on Sacramento. Back in the 70s, when you couldn't afford to own land because they taxed us to oblivion, Proposition 13 was passed. When Mike Reynolds, when they shot the wrong guy's daughter, they told him, Mike, you can't fight Sacramento. 20-time loser out on the streets. That's just the law, Mike. That's what they were saying all over the state. Well, you know why they killed the wrong man's daughter? Because he bit on like a bulldog. He wasn't the chihuahua in the distance. He says, I'm not going to stand for this. And we had 3 strikes, the most effective law enforcement legislation that changed the shape not only of California, but made the entire country safer, lifted us out of that crisis. Thank you, Mike Reynolds, for that. I led an effort with Mayor Hahn, Proposition 1A. You think you got tight budgets now? In 2004, we wouldn't pass 1A. You'd be broke. And Brand, I see you nodding. You know that. We drew a line in the sand. We took it to the people, and we beat the bully again. What H just outlined and Lee Brand has said, to keep 5% of our income tax home, a measly 5%. Keep 95. Do whatever you want to at Sacramento. Just keep us 5% of our hard-earned income tax for our own personal safety. That fight can be won. And I've seen where it can start. Right here, your legacy. You have a chance to leave a legacy, not only for your communities, the children and your grandchildren. You hear politicians talk about it all the time. Oh, I'm doing this for my children, for my grandchildren. Well, do something for your grandchildren and your children. Fight this. Fight it. And make a vow to each other you will not give up, whether you're on that dais or off. If you fight it, if you come together, League of Cities, and if it's Mayor Brand or Mayor Perea, hold them accountable to go fight that fight, because if we fight it, we will win. I thank you for this time. Yeah, it's a passionate subject for me, but I'll challenge you with this last question. Is there any subject, is there any issue the safety of ourselves, our children, our grandchildren, more important than this. If this doesn't get your fire burning, then your wood's wet. There's one for you, Paul.
Thank you.
God bless you. Thank you.
Good to see you, sir. Great comments. Appreciate that. Next will be Mike Reynolds. And then I was going to say the best for last, and that would be our district attorney. And she'll wrap it up for us. Good morning, sir, and thank you for being here. It's important for all of us.
I'm getting a little long in the tooth. He's still fighting this battle, but I appreciate you taking a minute to let me say a few words. The two men that were responsible for my daughter's murder. One made an industrial strength mistake and tried to shoot it out with the cops instead of an unarmed 18-year-old girl. But the other one is sitting right now in the Fresno County Jail, waiting for his day in court. He's up on 3 more strikes. He has served a total of 4.5 years for his part in my daughter's murder. But he has gone on to serve time after time after that, in and out of prison. The longest he's been out was the last time, I think he was out something like 110 days before he came in on these 3 new strikes. Prop 57 passes, he'll walk out the door. All of those will go away. Now, this is a guy that's got a record that goes clear back to like 14 years old was when he had his first heroin sale conviction for heavy drugs, and it's just gone on and on. It's sad. And my name's Mike Reynolds, and I was born right here in Fresno and went to Roosevelt High School. My kids went to Fresno High. We've maintained our family home here in the central Fresno area through 4 generations, nearly half a century. My son regrettably sold it last year and moved north with her grandkids. Too much crime. When crime moves in, and everything good moves out. Families move out, businesses close, and the tax base goes down, and the cost of police and law enforcement obviously goes up. So high crime areas are very costly to us in 2 respects. We don't get as much taxes out of them, and it costs us more to law enforcement for them to patrol those areas. We've all seen what Prop 47 has done to increase crime throughout California. Well, do I get the extra time? Okay. Prop 57 promises to be at least 10 times worse than 47. 57 has become known as the hug-a-thug law, and it's not wrong. There are 3 types of crimes: infractions, misdemeanors, and felonies are the worst type of crime there is. There's basically 3 types: straight felonies, serious, and violent. The violent felonies have 26 crimes that are in there, but Prop 57 impacts all the other nearly 500 felonies in the penal code. It disregards convictions for multiple crimes or prior convictions, regardless of how many or how violent. This means laws like 3 strikes, use a gun and you're done, 10-20 life, gang enhancements, other enhancements will no longer count. The only time will be served is for the primary crime, and that crime is subject to at least 50% time credits. The proponents of Prop 57 claim it will save money by providing much shorter time in state prison. The last time I checked, everybody has to be somewhere, and this means if they're not behind bars, they're on our streets. The short amount of time they're out on these crime sabbaticals can't possibly save enough state money to offset the cost to our city and the people that live here. When crimes no longer have penalties, there is no number of police that can stop it. I urge this council to take a position of opposition to Prop 57. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for being here. Next will be a sponsor of the similar resolution with the County of Fresno, our fantastic district attorney, Lisa Sodnegard-Smitkamp. Good morning. Great to see you again.
Good morning. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I would like to first congratulate this council for hearing this today. This is probably the most important public safety issue that I have seen in my 20 years of law enforcement. This is a frightening proposition. Prop 57 is the most serious and the most dangerous proposition that we are seeing on the ballot this year. The title of this ballot is so misleading. The title of Prop 47 was misleading. This is an abomination. The fact that Sacramento can put a ballot initiative with the content that mismatches the title should be illegal. To call this a rehabilitation act is atrocious. This should be called a get-out-of-jail-free card, because that's exactly what it is. And Chief Dyer has done such a great job going over the historical perspective of all of this and how we got here that I'm going to kind of skip over that and just talk about the ramifications of it. Prop 57, if it passes, is going to be a re-victimization of crime victims in the state of California. It will take away the ability of law enforcement officials who have made promises to victims of crime. It will take away all of the lawfully earned sentences that these inmates have been given by courts. It will take away 3 strikes, it will take away 1020 life, it will take away gang enhancements, and it will give bureaucrats who are not trained, who are not lawyers, who are not prosecutors, who are not criminal defense attorneys, who are not judges, the ability to arbitrarily decide who gets out. And for Governor Brown and for Sacramento to call these people nonviolent offenders is offensive. It's offensive to me as the district attorney. It's offensive to me as a citizen of the state. And it's offensive to me as a mother who is going to have their children walking the same streets as these people. This council is brave to take this issue on. Thank you, Member Brand, for your comments. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you have said. Sacramento and everybody who encourages or promotes this proposition should be ashamed of themselves. They are doing the same thing in 57 that they did in 47, and that is lying to the public. The people that are going to be eligible for release under this proposition are domestic violence offenders, human traffickers, people who assault police officers. These are violent criminals who have lawfully earned their sentences. And to have them be allowed to have early release without earning it, it's a free get-out-of-jail-free card. You know, the governor talks about rehabilitation. The governor talks about them earning their credit. He talks about having them, encouraging them to be better when they get out. There's not $1. There's not one program that has been set for them to earn that. Nothing. It's simply a get-out-of-jail-free card. There's nothing they have to do. There's nothing they have to there's nothing being required of them. There's no classes they have to take. There's no programs they have to participate in. It's simply a get-out-of-jail-free card because the bureaucrats in Sacramento don't want to deal with an upcoming problem of dealing with overcrowded prisons. And as Chief Dyer has very properly and accurately described to you, we are already below the number of inmates that's set by the 3-judge panel. So there really isn't a prison overcrowding issue anymore. Those issues have been solved by AB 109. They've been solved by Prop 47. And many problems have been created, obviously, by AB 109 and Prop 47. But I applaud you for bringing this to the council, and I encourage you to have pass your resolution to oppose Prop 57, because I can tell you it will be a tremendous danger to public safety. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you very much. And again, it's no penalty, no consequences. It's a free-for-all. Anyone else in the public wish to come forward and discuss this item, please do so. Love to hear your comments. Okay, back up here, Member Olivier.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to be very brief this morning and thank the members who brought this forward. I think this is a good resolution. I think it's appropriate that this body pass it, so I urge a yes vote from all of you. And I also wanted to thank our presenters, everyone from Chief to Mayor Autry, Mr. Reynolds, Reverend Spies, and of course our district attorney. Thank you for coming. Lots of passion at that lectern this morning, and I think that it's well placed. I also wanted to say that my colleague, Councilmember Brand, your comments were very passionate. I think they were spot on. I think that not only can Sacramento and the state legislature be blamed for problems with crime, but I think that something that dovetails with crime in our community is poverty and concentrated poverty. And I think that the governor and the former governor and the one before him, but especially the current legislature, can be blamed for the poverty, the grinding poverty, and the job killing that they do up there in Sacramento that affects this community so much. And then they go and bring things like this as well. Their need to exert control and rearrange society to fit their own utopian dreams has its effects, and there is no place that is more crippled by what Sacramento and the state assembly and the governor and the state senate. No place is it more evident that they are doing incalculable harm than here in the Central Valley and here in the city of Fresno. So I thank you for that presentation and urge a yes vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Brandau.
Council President, I also wanted to thank all of the members that came out today and of leadership in our community, speaking so strongly and passionately against this. It's very pleasing that we have this kind of unity, and I do hope, former Mayor Alan Autry, that we can stay unified and create a groundswell of opposition, even leading other cities in the state. I know Councilmember Capriolio, Councilmember Olivier sits on the decision leadership team of League of Cities, so hopefully we can create some inroads there. We are going to a convention very soon, and this body will be very vocal there. So all of those are great. I did want to add, Council President, that Sheriff Mims also is in support, as other law enforcement is, against Prop 57. She just couldn't be here today, and I believe that District Attorney Smitkamp is going to lead the same resolution at the County Board of Supervisors. Is that correct? So hopefully Fresno can set an example throughout our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The screen is clear. Let's do an electronic vote on this. Todd, if you'd help us there. All those in favor, vote yes. Opposed is a no. Congratulations. The resolution passes 5-0 with members Baines and Soria absent. Thank you all so much for being here. Sincerely appreciate it. Keep our unity together as we move forward. Yeah. By the way, folks, I hope we see you outside for hamburgers for our lunch fundraiser. We'll take about a 5-minute break. Thank you. We served over 600 plates out there for the 2 correctional officers and their families. So thank you all for helping and for participating and making it a really great success. So, and I want to thank my colleagues who were on the service line. I know Lee was there as long as I was, so I appreciate that. Okay, I think we had one thing that we didn't do in the morning, the ADA. Is that, okay, good. Thanks for that. We'll do that right now. Thank you for being patient, and good afternoon.
Of course. My name is Shannon Mulhall. I'm your Americans with Disabilities Act coordinator, and I'm housed within our Public Works Department. It's a pleasure to be here today talking to you about this council item. So, City Manager's Office asked that we put together a PowerPoint to help guide you through talking about the regulations related to the ADA and what we're asking you to do today, which is adoption of the Facilities Transition Plan. All right, my clicker's on. All right, first and foremost, the Americans with Disabilities Act is a civil rights law. So oftentimes when we think about the ADA, we forget about that point. So I always want to start with talking about equal access to all of our programs, services, and activities for all members of our community. Now, this was signed into law in 1991. 1991. Actually, 1990, I apologize. 91 is when we implemented. And the ADA is broken down into 5 different parts. Our rules are Title II of the ADA. It's how we as state or local government entity, local government being us, how we implement the Americans with Disabilities Act. This is very different than what your businesses are experiencing out in the community. I know several of you have talked to me in the past about concerns related to ADA lawsuits and businesses. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about how are we making sure that we're on the right track and that we're meeting our obligations. And I'm not going to talk through each one of these points. You're welcome.
Thank you.
So again, our primary responsibility is that we have equal access to the programs, the services, and activities. Everybody gets the chance to participate. And one of the ways that we have to do that is through the Facilities Transition Plan. The 5 basic requirements that we have are to designate an ADA coordinator, yours truly. We have an ADA grievance procedure that has been done. Post an ADA notice, which we do. Self-evaluation, that was conducted in 1995, 2002, and currently we are updating it. And the last part is to develop, adopt, and implement an ADA transition plan. This is for physical barrier removal. It was required to be drafted by 1992 and completed by 1995. That has not yet happened. And so today I'm asking you as the council to adopt that and start moving forward with this process. So when we look at our existing facilities, things that we can do to make sure to maintain compliance, first and foremost, we can make alterations to the facility. And that's part of what this plan talks about. We also have the option of providing that same service in an alternative facility that is fully accessible. We have that option. If we can't make a facility accessible, we move that program. And the third thing, of course, which we do typically in our city service, is to provide some sort of aid to help make sure that person is connected to the service that they need. Something like a sign language interpreter. That's an example of an auxiliary aid or service. So we started doing an ADA facilities assessment from 2003 all the way to 2009. We worked with a consultant, MIG, who went through and measured and quantified and prioritized the issues that we have in 18 of our facilities. And that's what you'll see within the facilities report, which is very thick, about 2-3 inches wide. And within it, it included action steps, priorities, and also planning level costs, things that we can use to start figuring out how much are we going to need to spend on each of our facilities. So this is an example of one of the survey maps that we have within that report, where you can see little arrows and numbers coding towards different areas within the facility. This is kind of a higher level look at that, something that our facilities managers would use when they're planning out the projects. We also included criteria for how to prioritize which buildings, which facilities that we need to do first and in what order. What do our staff think are the priorities? And then what does our community think is the priority? And that's a very important part. That's a required part under the ADA, that we have that community input from people with disabilities. So, of course, this is how we prioritize it. First and foremost, level of use by the public, social need. Things that do social need would be like some of our feeding programs, our heating and cooling stations. those kind of things that we open up. Citizen rights, like City Hall being engaged in the public process. Program uniqueness. That's maybe we only have this program in one facility or in 2 different areas. That's something that we want to think about. Maybe that's a priority. Geographic distribution is also very important. Are we making sure that there's equitable access in our city for all of our community, that we're not just working in one district or one other district, that everybody is really able to connect with accessible services? And then again, the critical nature of the service, if there's a real important need there as well. Now, within the facilities, we also had to do another level of ranking. The first is, how do we get into the building and get around in it? The second is, how do we use the program that's in the building? Is the council chambers accessible? Those kinds of things. The third level priority within the buildings are the amenities. Going to the bathroom is very important when you have a long day of meetings, right? We want to make sure that our public is able to use all of our amenities and facilities that we have. And we also have in our report a 4th level of priority. Those are areas that we could make more accessible that don't meet the requirements, but they're also provided in another way. So if we choose not to do the 4th level of priority on those items, we can, and we would be covered because they're available in another format. We broke down the facility schedule over 16 years, and you can just take a look here on the screen, the years 1 through 8 priorities. I have an asterisk next to City Hall and homes because some of the improvements have already been done in past projects. Ted C. Wills is one of our community centers that has had all of the ADA barrier removals completed already. Here's 9 through 16 on our schedule. Now you'll notice in year 15-16 we have our fax administration building. This was something that when the surveys were conducted, when we did the analysis, we had our handy ride offices at the fax administration building at the municipal service yard. There was a large number of people with disabilities coming to that facilities. At that point, it was a higher priority. Well, we now have a very nice, fully accessible handy ride office over on Blackstone and Ashland. And so that's why that's dropped down to the lower priority and could potentially be dropped off depending on whether or not we wanted to continue with it or if there's other services for the public. But that's something that I think is important for you as the council to be aware of too, is if we move programs to another facility, we may have to change the prioritization level of the years that we have here. On your screen, you can also see we have a map of the geographic distribution. Did you want me to leave it up here for a second to take a look? Sure, I'll let you look at that. One of the things that's very interesting about our community centers and our areas of public engagement is a lot of our community centers are in southern Fresno, in South Fresno, or in the downtown core, which is the cutaway map that you'll see in the top left corner. I think our most recent community center is in your district, fully accessible. That's kind of what we want to get towards with our other community centers, making sure that we can say, sure, absolutely, we're welcoming, we're accessible, no problem. We've got this covered. Are you ready for me to move on? Great.
Actually, I'm ready for a community center in District 4.
Wouldn't that be fantastic?
That'd be fantastic.
A fully accessible one, right? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so part of this process, early on, we did a community outreach with our Disability Advisory Commission in 2009 when the plan was first put together. And then when we re-engaged with the plan and started updating it again more recently, we had meetings in February and again in March. This is, again, a huge part of what we're doing is going to the community and saying, this is what we think are the priorities. Do they match your priorities? How are you using these programs? Do you agree that this is the order in which we should address these things because we need to address these things? The cost. Currently, it's estimated at about $13 million to address all of these facilities over 16 years, and that's including the escalating construction costs at about 3%, as well as administrative costs. And again, we have proposed this for implementation over 16 years. One of the things that I want to share with you that I do is I look through all of the Department of Justice Project Civic Access settlements. These are the lawsuits that Department of Justice holds against cities. And when they require transition plans updates, it's a 3-year time period. By being proactive, by moving forward with this plan, we have now a little more control over our timing, our scheduling, and the financial implementation of this. And so, although 16 years seems like a long time, I'm hoping that we can just start moving forward with this. At this point, I'll open it up to questions and answers. I also have our Director, Scott Mosier, here who can help us with some of the financial questions as well that may come up.
Thank you very much. Very engaging. Thank you. We'll call you back if we have any questions.
Great, thank you.
And we'll take this out to the community. Is there anyone in the community that wishes to address this item? Please come forward and we'll give you 3 minutes. Seeing none, back to the dais. Council comments? Member Quintero.
Thank you, Shannon. That was a good presentation. I had a chance to look at the improvements that are being proposed for the Mosqueda Community Center being, I think it was built, about the 1960s, and there's been improvements that have gone on, and then even most recently we had the lift repaired, the one that makes it available for a wheelchair to get onto the stage. And so that was a real good fix there, because it had been a while since it had been fixed. So more and more improvements are going on there. So I want to thank you for taking the time out and really putting some time into that, as well as the updating of the center as well, with working with the Parks Department on a big media, like a media center with a movie screen and speakers and that type of thing. So it's a good job, and we get a big full use of that with the senior hot meals program, and then we have the senior swimming classes there, the yoga and exercise, and there have really been no complaints about that as far as accessibility or anything that they can't get to easily. So thank you very much. Really appreciate the good work and good information. Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Member Quintero, seconded by Member Brand. Screen is clear. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes 5-0 with Members Baines and Brandow absent. Okay. Mr. Zuniga, is that you back there? Oh, sorry. I thought you were a fellow I'd seen on the card here. Thank you for being here, though. Okay, next we're going to go to the actual 1:30 calendar. And there is no contested consent, so we'll move right into ceremonials. Proclamation of Latino Voter Registration Month. Member Soya.
So this afternoon, I had the opportunity to stand alongside with a number of Latino elected officials and community-based organizations to declare the month of September Latino Voter Registration Month. And so just a little bit of background on September. Our Latino community celebrates Hispanic Heritage Month, and it starts September 15th and it goes through mid-October. We thought that it was an important opportunity to highlight the importance of folks in our community to register to vote. The deadline is October 24th, and so over the next few weeks we will make sure that we provide the resources and education so that folks know where they can easily register to vote. And so I want to thank both Trustee De La Cerda for joining us, and also Samuel Molina, who represents Mi Familia Vota. It's an organization that has been working hard on the ground throughout Fresno to engage Latino families. We know that the city of Fresno is the population is close to about 50% Latinos, and a lot of folks out there still can register to vote that are not registered. And so we want to encourage them to do so over the next few weeks, because their vote is their voice. They'll be able to impact elections across the board, all the way from the presidential ticket to our local school board races. So we would just want to make sure that we highlight this month. I want to thank my colleagues and also the mayor for signing on to this proclamation, so that they know that the city of Fresno is committed to ensuring that the Latinos in our community have the information and get out and register to vote by the deadline of October 24th. And so I want to let Sam say a couple of words of the work that they have done and what they will be doing over the next few weeks.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. And thank you, council members and the mayor, again, for signing on to this proclamation. Mi Familia Vota has been in Fresno for the last 2.5 years, and we've been able to register this year alone over 4,000 people to vote for this, in time for this election, and more than 50% of them are 18 to 24 years of age, and more than 50% of them are also Latinos. So thank you again, Councilwoman, for signing, for helping us with this proclamation. We really appreciate everything that you do for us, and thank you.
Again, thank you, Sam, for the work that your organization has been doing. I know that it will be very instrumental, and so we want to make sure that our community does register to vote. We encourage them because we know that they can make the difference in every election. Clerk, if you could read the proclamation for the record.
Whereas the continuity, strength, and legacy of any democratic society is dependent on the education, the enlightenment, and the overall participation of its citizens, and whereas the right to vote is critical to the vitality of our democracy, a core tenet of liberty, and an important step in equality in the city of Fresno and in the United States. And whereas it is the goal of the city of Fresno to encourage and increase the number of its residents who actively and regularly participate in the electoral process and who accept the responsibilities of citizenship in a democratic society. And whereas a significant portion of the electorate concentrated for the most part in low-income and minority communities remains disconnected from the electoral process. And whereas voting by people of color, working people and young people, and other underrepresented groups is fundamental to the exercise of the democratic elections. And whereas the empowerment of all qualified voters, including those with limited influence and wealth, can result in the election of leaders truly representative of their constituents. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, Mayor Ashley Swearingen, and the City of Fresno Council does hereby recognize Latino Voter Registration Month in the City of Fresno and is proud to support National Voter Registration Day on September 27, 2016, as part of a national initiative encouraging broad participation in our democracy. Latino Voter Registration Month, September 2016. National Voter Registration Day, September 27, 2016.
Thank you. So just one last announcement, as the city clerk mentioned, next Tuesday is actual National Voter Registration Day. So again, a number of groups will be highlighting the importance of registering all people within our community that are eligible voters. I know that they'll be hosting a press conference here in the front of City Hall next week. So again, thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. Okay, so I'll go ahead and call up our next.
Excuse me, Member Sawyer. Jim Grant, did you want to comment on this proclamation, or was it a different one? The next one? Okay. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. So now I'll invite the folks here that are supporting the International Day of Peace and Week of Peace, if you guys all want to come up. So I'm proud here this afternoon to present this proclamation. This proclamation in recognition of International Day of Peace and Week of Peace. So Peace Day is devoted to commemorating and strengthening the ideals of peace both within and among all nations and peoples. On September 21st, the United Nations commemorates the International Day of Peace throughout public awareness and education on issues related to peace. On the inaugural day, the United Nations Peace Bell is run at the UN headquarters in New York City. Here in the city of Fresno, we would like to honor that tradition and incorporate it to our city by recognizing International Peace Day on September 21st and Peace Week from September 19th through the 25th. We would like to encourage our community to celebrate Peace Day. It can be as simple as just sitting in silence and or meditating. We know that promoting peace throughout our entire community will be a very positive thing here in the city of Fresno. And so Peace Day here in our city will mark our personal and planetary progress towards peace. I know that here today I'm joined by a number of individuals, activists in our community, residents that every day work hard to make the city of Fresno a better place for all of us and for our future generations. So I want to thank you guys for the work. Thank you for contacting our office to make sure that we highlight the International Day of Peace and that we do work together to foster peace throughout the entire city of Fresno. And so before I have the clerk read the proclamation, I'll go ahead and let you say a couple of words.
Thank you. Hello. My name is Betty Leone. You have a copy of my notes, so I'm not going to read it all, but I just wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to the mayor, to the council, to speak on this occasion. And around the world, there are hundreds of actions, maybe thousands probably, to commemorate this day for its spiritual, moral, civic, and societal implications. And one example, yesterday, September 21st, the International Day of Peace, an important event took place in our U.S. Senate in Washington, D.C. This is just one example. 27 senators voted to stop an arms sale to human rights violators Saudi Arabia. And one senator, Al Franken, said that the very fact that we're here today sends a very important message. He was, I think, implying a message of peace to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, that we are watching your actions closely, and the United States is not going to turn a blind eye to the indiscriminate killing of men, women, and children. So when you talk about peace, you also are talking about ways to stop violence. This is one way to commemorate a day of peace. So I was going to give you some, as an educator, some suggestions for reading, but you can read them on your own. One is from Thich Nhat Hanh, his book, In Touching Peace. And I'm just going to read that because it's kind of a lyrical, more of a narrative thing. It's from his chapter 3 called Transforming Our Compost. He says, when we look deeply at a flower, we can see that it is made entirely of non-flower elements, like sunshine, rain, soil, compost, air, and time. If we continue to look deeply, we will also notice that the flower is on her way to becoming compost. Flowers and compost inter-are. They need each other. When we look deeply into ourselves, we see both flowers and garbage. Each of us has anger, hatred, depression, racial discrimination, and many other kinds of garbage in us. But, as he says, there's no need for us to be afraid. In the way that a gardener knows how to transform compost into flowers, we can learn the art of transforming anger, depression, and racial discrimination into love and understanding. And then I quote John Deere, who actually was very helpful to me as I worked on this on the email. And he has a book that came out in 2013 called The Nonviolent Life. And I'll let you read the handout, and I have handouts for people that don't have one. But The Nonviolent Life talks about 3 ways of being violent. The first one, being nonviolent toward ourselves. 2, being nonviolent to all others, including creation and creatures. And 3, joining the global grassroots movement of nonviolence. In other words, being part of a community to work towards nonviolence, not just on your own. So he says that he thinks that a fully rounded, 3-dimensional person of nonviolence needs to be doing all 3 of those things at the same time. And so he explores that in his book, and he also has discussion questions, which is really nice if you wanted to start a peaceful, like a study group, or you wanted to bring it to a class or an employer organization. And the last thing I have on the handout is just that you can contact the Fresno Center for Nonviolence, Pachi Bene, all the addresses are on here, the phone numbers and everything. And there's also a wonderful magazine called Teaching Tolerance that's excellent, and they're all around the country. They're in a lot of the schools, and so I encourage you to get that information from this statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Thank you. So, Clerk, if we could read the proclamation for the record.
Whereas the issue of peace embraces the deepest hopes of all people and remains humanity's guiding inspiration and the inspiration of the city of Fresno. And whereas in 1981, the United Nations proclaimed the International Day of Peace devoted to commemorating and strengthening the ideas of peace both within and among all other nations and peoples. And whereas there's a growing support in our city for observance of the International Day of Peace and Week of Peace, which affirms a vision of our world at peace and fosters cooperation between individuals, local organizations, and nations. And whereas global crises impel and influence all citizens to work towards converting humanity's noblest aspiration for the world peace into a practical reality for future generations. And whereas peace is of the utmost importance to the city of Fresno and its residents who strive for the valuable accomplishment of respect and peace for all its community members. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, Mayor Ashley Swearingen, and the Council of the City of Fresno, do hereby recognize September 21st as the International Day of Peace and September 19th through 25th as the Week of Peace throughout the City of Fresno, and urges all government departments and agencies, organizations, schools, places of worship, and individuals in our city to commemorate in a safe and appropriate manner the projects, performances, cultural exhibits, a moment of silence, ringing of bells, vigils, religious services in our places of worship, and other education and public awareness activities in order to help establish a global day, week, and month of peace in homes, communities, and between nations. International Day of Peace is September 21st, 2016, and Week of Peace is September 19th through 25th, 2016.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Betty, and thank you, all the members of Peace Fresno, for all the work that you guys do. That's fine. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
I'm Camille Russell. I'm a member of Peace Fresno, and I live in Councilman Brandau's district. This proclamation is important because by endorsing it, you're setting a goal, that of setting a safe and peaceful environment for the people of Fresno and the people of the world. Goals are important because they motivate change. The next step will be to implement that goal with action. This year, one simple thing that all of us can do is stand with Peace Fresno tomorrow evening at our demonstration at 5:30 at the corner of Blackstone and Nees, saying No War 2016, as we join World Beyond War, the National Campaign for Nonviolent Resistance, the campaign Nonviolence, in calling for viable alternatives to war and militarism. Peace Fresno has a website. We have a Facebook page. The details are there. We invite you to join us in saying no to U.S. wars.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Grant. I live at 4098 West Harvard Avenue in Fresno, and I represent the Diocese of Fresno today as the Director of Social Justice Ministry for our 8-county diocese. I'd like to bring us a thought from Pope Francis. He has just made a decision which might be a model for what the City Council might like to do. He has subsumed 4 departments that used to be dealing with all the issues of peace and justice, those most deprived in the world, and the social needs, and has one single department called Integral Human Development. He has assigned a cardinal who I met in Philadelphia when I was there, when the Pope was there. And this cardinal is Cardinal Peter Turkson. He's a Ghanaian, a big, handsome African man. He's going to be in the Valley in February 16th through the 19th for the World Meeting of Popular Movements. Hundreds of people from across the world are going to meet in Modesto for 4 days. Then Cardinal is going to visit Fresno and give a major address to our diocese. Why it's important to think like this, as Pope Francis does, we have to get beyond bureaucracy into something that actually addresses real issues, which are integral human development. I'll close with a thought from another one of my favorite popes, Pope Paul VI, who wrote an encyclical on the progress of peoples, and here's what he said: if you want peace, work for justice. And I really think what we did today was sweet and nice, very symbolic. It didn't cost us a penny. It took Betty some time, okay. But it was not with blood, sweat, and tears, and it was not yet implemented. So I would ask the council to think of bringing back the Human Rights Commission and to be able to have an organization that once again addresses social needs of peace and justice and human development right here in the city of Fresno. It'll do more than marches, proclamations, and good wishes. I would wish us to think about bringing that back, funding it, and making it succeed. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to our unscheduled communications. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and discuss any issue or matter? This is the appropriate time to do it. Please give us your name and your address, and you'll have 3 minutes. I do have a card from Isaiah Zuniga. Are you here, Mr. Zuniga? Okay, thank you. You always do, sir. Good job. We'll close our unscheduled communication. We'll go into closed session and then adjourn the meeting in memory of Avis Chilingarian, thank you, as well as the one and only Blackie Ejia. City Attorney?
Yes, in closed session, we have existing litigation, Scholl versus City of Fresno versus Wambold, and anticipated litigation versus the State Water Resources Control Board. I would not expect an announcement afterwards.
Thank you very much. We'll go into closed session and adjourn after that. Thank you for being here today. Meeting is adjourned.